Well, welcome everybody to the Golden Bay Community Board meeting. I'm just going to hand over to Kim for karakia.
I did one.
See ya.
Tātou, whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, hi akiara, te atakura, hi teo, hi huka, hi hohu, tihe, Māori ora.
Kia ora, Kim, thank you. I'd just like to welcome Ro to our Golden Bay Community Board, and she is a new person, which is awesome. Are you a new person? You're
New to the meeting.
new to the meeting, but not new for us,
council.
but not new for council, but new for us. So thank you so much, Ro, for stepping in and supporting us to do this. That's great. Thank you. Any apologies? I have one from Board Member Hewison. Any? No, and everyone else here. Are you?
No, the other meeting's been postponed, so I'll be here for
Lovely, excellent. Thank you. Well, I'm happy to move that the apologies be accepted. Right, seconded by Deputy Chair Knowles. Lovely. Okay. So we'll move into public forum. We have 10 minutes of public forum today. For Cythia, you're speaking on behalf of the group, Cythia. So welcome.
Thank you, Abby. And Rose, I'll give you a copy of what I say, so we don't.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Just before I start, I want to say that I met the new enforcement officer, Dave, when I was leaving the market a couple of weeks ago. And I want to say how encouraged I was by his enthusiasm and obvious commitment to the job. And this is something that we hadn't had in Golden Bay before. I'll move on now to the presentation. The nesting season for variable oyster catchers finishes in Golden Bay today. Forest and Bird Monitor nesting sites from Motapiti Rotatai through to Montport Collingwood. And this section of the coastline holds the largest numbers of beach nesting variable oyster catchers in Golden Bay. I don't include Bulldogs, but that's something or an area that the DOC look after, and we tend to work where they aren't. So the conservation status in New Zealand is recovering. And I just wanted to say a little bit about this term, recovering. Recovering is primarily due to these birds being given legal protection from hunting, which has allowed the species to recover from near extinction. Ornithologist Nicky MacArthur, in his baseline survey, classifies them as regionally at risk recovering. At risk means a moderate to high risk of extinction, not yet considered threatened, but could become so. Forest and Bird are concerned that if we don't look after our variable oyster catchers better than we currently are, then over time we'll lose them from our coastal beaches. Our observations show us that the breeding failures of variable oyster catchers should be giving us cause for concern. I'd just like to share with you our count of chicks that survived the last nesting season. And I'm talking in that area from Ghosham Motapiti to Collingwood. So keeping in mind that each pair of these birds lay 2 to 3 eggs, and I have, by the way, only once seen 3 chicks raised by a variable oyster catcher, and that was at Parapara during the 2023-2024 summer. So at Rotatai Motapiti, we had 3 chicks survive from 16 pairs of oyster catchers. At Rangihaiata, 2 chicks before paired. Between the Onaho River and the Parapara River, 0 chicks from 15 pairs. Parako Inlet, the only bright star in the dark sky, the dark perimeter, 11 chicks from 8 pairs. At Montport Collingwood, 5 chicks from 11 pairs. So in total, 21 chicks survived this last eastern fever, and 11 of them, at 50%, were raised in the Parapana Inlet. On the remainder of the coastline that Forest and Bird monitor, 10 chicks survived from 46 pairs of birds. So 2% of the eggs laid produced young, and that might give you some indication why I'm here today. The new dog control bylaw and the Department of Conservation has failed to protect our beach nest and variable nest captures at 2 high density sites. The Parapaka, you did correct me, Chris, and Northbrook Collingwood. From the Onaho River to the Parapaka River, dog predation and vehicles are the main cause. A lone farm dog that predates nests at Onaho, and dog owners who exercise their dogs by running them behind their vehicles as they drive along the beach from Pittman's Rock. And it's not just one or two. One of the residents who looks after these birds is dead, and they're up to 5. And Raylene Mason was only talking to me a couple of weeks ago about the vehicle usage at Pittman's Rock. She said just over the top. At Collingwood Longthorpe, out of control dogs that run and chase birds and some vehicle disturbances are responsible for chick loss. And I want to give you these 2 photos of variable detection chicks and tell you what Marna Stratton said. Veterinary surgeon Marna Stratton says chick kill here is dog related. The deep puncture wounds around the hip area of these birds and their side are too large for a cat, a mustelid, a rat or hedgehog. They indicate a dog grabbing the chick from behind while trying to escape. Mustelids tend to go for the back of the neck. Evidence supports dog attack. So we're seeking solutions to the impact of off-leash dogs being exercised at these 2 sites, that's the Parapaka and Collingwood Longthorpe, where we have considerable numbers of beach nesting variable pictures. And what we're proposing is that signage be installed at Northbrook Collingwood and the Parapaka. And I'm going to put forward a suggested sign. And I just want to say, you know, that I would presume that would go to your comms team or something like that, you know, for the content, to look at the content. This is suggested content. We're also proposing that council employ a summer student to conduct a short survey of beach walkers, to educate beach walkers, and to hand out a Share the Beach flyer at these 2 sites. And I'm again going to put forward a suggested survey and a suggested Share the Beach flyer. Maybe I'll go around this one. And our final request today is for the Golden Bay Community Board to support the 3 initiatives that we propose.
Sorry, I didn't get 2.
There's the Share the Beach flyer.
Signage, the summer student employed to take a survey and hand out flyers. Was it 2? 2 and 1? Right,
Yeah,
good. No, I didn't miss it.
Because we would like the student to educate us for.
Yeah, cool. No, I didn't miss one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Who would fund the signs there? Who are you wanting to fund the signage
Well, Tasman District Council.
to be funded?
Yeah. And
Oh, okay.
because they're not forestry, they're, you know, we wouldn't have our logo on them. I'm suggesting that maybe you jointly go to Doc over the signage because Doc have a responsibility here.
Chris and then Grant.
Have you, thanks, Cythia, have you been to Doc?
No. No. They are aware that we have a problem there.
Yeah, but in terms of them having their
No, I mean,
mandating the sign, that will be a question.
I had a
You need to
Oh,
take
I have presumed that TDC would work with Doc to get that done.
So now we'll leave it with-
I think Shane has contacted Andrew Lamont. Yeah.
That's it.
Grant.
I'm just wondering if to add the actual amount of the fine on the says you get fined on the sign. I just think, you know, up to 50 grand or whatever it actually is, might be a little bit stronger deterrent.
I would rather leave the content of the sign. I mean, I'm making a suggestion with
Yeah.
that. I'd rather the content of it
Yeah.
because it would be a TDC Doc sign.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, it's their choice, not mine.
I believe our bylaw comes in tomorrow and there is going to be a lot of new signage. Am I correct?
Yeah, I was just going to clarify that it's come later, but I mean, I've discussion now. Chris.
Have you got some real mind about where, what's, the thing about signage is, you know, how to have it somewhere that people, it's big enough that people can see it and will read it. But also, if it tides, it will wash it away and new things in these areas and somewhere that signage could be
Oh,
effective.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, at the Party Pocket Idaho and Collingwood Montfort, and that's where I'm talking about. The signs should go at either end of the nesting area.
Yeah.
And you'll find that, I mean, it's very unusual for storm surge to take out an inspection use. They tend to be right up high. I mean, the reason we're at these two places is because there are no houses there. You know,
Yeah.
they're sort of secluded. They've got, I think, Nova Little and their husband farm behind where they live. And so, yeah, that's good spots.
Yeah.
The signage at both places.
Yeah, Siri, you know,
Yeah. I just wanted to ask about the, this has come up, you know, over the years, this concept of traffic light signage. And also, is there, apparently there used to be a group, Nelson City Council, TDC joint working group on getting the signs consistent.
Yes, I mean, that was Scott Burnett, our regional conservation manager. He was nominated to go on that group and to work with Nelson City Council. And I think somebody from Doc as well was on that group. And so what they were trying to do was get consistency between Nelson City Council signage and Tasman District Council signage. And we promoted the traffic light system, have done for 6 years now. Because I think that when a dog owner goes to the beach, they need to know where they can go and what they can do.
And so you're not aware of that continuing?
No, I haven't had any feedback. You know, from the
This
council.
is something that the community, something the community board
Yeah.
can actually ask about.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah,
Then yes.
so we're currently consulting on fees and charges, which is the mechanism to get the revenue to do these sorts of things. So
Yeah.
that is in play at the moment.
One more for Chris.
In terms of the bylaw hearing process, signage was spoken about by a number of people about wanting signage that's clear, maybe signs that if you're going to put a sticker on, you were here and be out in air, you know, here's the sign, and so that some of them are nonsensical. But and also from the panels side, you know, that heard, that was, ran the hearing, we did ask council to check in with, when the signs were getting produced, to check in with us and our wards around that, you know, that they are accurate, but, and also with some of the dog groups as well. So I don't quite know where that's sitting, but it might be something the board to follow up with, is some of those details too around the process, around is that's what's happening, but that's what we asked for. Local input. Yeah.
I mean, I'm certainly happy if there is installing signage, you know, to meet them anywhere or, you know, that's of help.
Well, I'll pass it on. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for coming today. It's always nice to see you. Birds are lucky to have you on their side.
Oh, I love them.
And so that brings us to the end of our public forum. Any declarations of interest regarding any items on the agenda today? No, everybody is happy. Good-o. Can we confirm the minutes for the Golden Bay Community Board February minutes? True and correct. Moved by Grant, seconded by Henry. All those in favour? Lovely, thank you. No late items, no presentations today. So we're skipping into our board report. And I always forget every time we do it. We receive it at the, what's best practice, Ro? Receiving it at the end or receiving it at the start?
I think usually at the end.
Perfect.
And then if you want any
Just don't let me
discussion.
forget because I'll just
No,
skip
I'll
straight
write it.
past.
It's okay.
Okay, moving on. Thank you. Right. So we had a little bit of a shuffle regarding where we meet, just with the change of personnel and Ro not having a chance to be familiar with the Starlink system and things like that. We just moved back to Tarka. Then we thought we'd just leave it as it was until we get to September, and then the incoming board will be able to set their agenda or set their schedule going forward. Has anyone got any feedback or alternative suggestions, or is everyone okay with that as it is?
Is there like why not there's another one coming?
Yeah, we absolutely can. Just yeah, which one were you
Well,
thinking?
Maybe the June one, say.
Yeah, we just have to, it would be subject to availability for the fire station, but
Right.
yeah, would that be, can we check on that, right? Is everyone happy with that?
Good to have.
Yeah.
Good.
For sure.
Yeah, they fought for it for a long time, hassled us for it, so I think we need to kind of do that, even if, you know, we don't get the numbers that are coming out there as we might have expected.
Yeah,
Still people-
absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, I'll leave that with Ro to check if we can do that. Great. And you'll be okay with Starlink?
Yeah.
Cool. Good news. We retain our 2 councillors and our community boards for Golden Bay and Motueka remain, which is great. So I'm very pleased about the councillor thing. Chris, sorry, I skipped over. Did you have?
Well, it was suggested at council by some that actually Golden Bay should only have 1 councillor.
Yeah, it was.
And, you know, we'd have those little debates in the chamber
Robust
around, you know,
discussions.
maybe Richmond councillors don't quite have enough to do, perhaps they. Cat seems to play golf 3 times a week. Anyway, he told me that.
You only 2.
He told me that, yeah.
Poor Chris only squeezes in 2 rounds.
I wish.
9 holes.
But you know, it was quite a thing where some people, you know, were really thinking Golden Bay only warrants having 1 person, and so I think it's good to comment on this and not just in a passing way. That actually the commission has said that because of the isolated nature of here, and something that Cythia brings up often is around, you know, the regional function of council. A lot of that work is actually in our ward, you know, and not much in Richmond. But so I think it's good to make a strong point about that's been validated that, and there was even a suggestion during that process from a councillor that Golden Bay could just be merged into Motueka as one ward and not have anyone from here particularly, or just good luck. You
Good
know.
luck to you.
So this is I think it's a I think it's a fair and a necessary outcome of that review. It's been considered. There certainly are some recommendations in the review, and if you've read it, but that when the council go through this again, that we do certain things around being a little more expensive and thinking perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I take this as a validation, really, of our viewpoint from here, because there was actually very little comment about it. It was just taken as being in the report as being something that was necessary. Now, what we don't know actually is whether or not the issue of the regional function is how much that, whether that was taken into account, because that wasn't actually mentioned in the report, even though I understand that it was actually put forward in the submissions. So the legislation doesn't actually seem to accommodate that unitary council function. There's only 5 of us in the country, and the legislation doesn't seem to actually take account of it at all. So whether or not that was involved in the decision or not, we don't know, because it wasn't mentioned. But yeah, given the pushback that came in council, and that some councillors, I'm just not wanting to repeat what Councillor Hill said, but you know, it was quite strong actually from some councillors really questioning the need for 2 councillors here, and the fact that the report has simply, without question, accepted it, I think is something that we can all, you know, gives us confidence really, including the community board. And so the issue of the the Māori ward member, should that eventuate, will be a councillor at large. They won't be attached to a
Then they'll just be from the district.
Yeah, so but which means that they could actually technically take up one of our councillor spaces on one of the community boards. In actual fact,
Well, either board.
on either board.
Motueka board as well.
Presumably both.
Yeah.
And that will happen.
Because
The
our
Māori
councillor
ward
at
is
large.
going to happen for at least a year.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's the situation, and I'm assuming that it will depend upon where that Māori board member would be either domiciled or where they would see their sphere of interest.
I don't know about that.
Right.
About where they are, because they're a councillor at large, so they cover the whole district. So I think where they live wouldn't come into that so much, was my thinking.
They would have to be
And
the whole.
the process of, you know, so after each election, when we work out all sorts of things at council around who's on what committee and you know, what the makeup of the boards will be, there's a decision each time around, will the board could just be the 4 community board members actually. Doesn't have to be, councillors don't have to be here, or you could say there's one, or anyway, in that conversation or process, it will be determined whether there's going to be 2 councillors from here, or whether one of us in the Māori ward councillor.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
And that'll happen after the election.
Yeah.
Or sorry, just or whether or not it could be immovable. We don't know. That it could be actually, you know, every second meeting or something like that. Between Motueka and Community Board.
Or could they sit as well as our, so we've got 3 councillors around our table as well as the 4 community board members.
Not to be a member.
Right, just on the topic of the region, the regional role, just to alert members to fact that the government reforms propose taking virtually all our regional functions and putting them into a central agency. So that's not going to happen with the two bills that are in place at the moment, or proposed at the moment. There will be another piece of legislation to achieve that if they go ahead with it. So the consenting function would be tightened, but the compliance and the environmental monitoring functions would go into a central agency, is what they're announcing at the moment, just in terms of, and then whether that was a factor of why the Commission steered away from making any comment, I don't know, but it's possible.
And I know it's Brendan Duffy was the person who signed it off. He's still the chair there, and he had a lot to do with Golden Bay and going through our local board of business council board. So he might have had a bit of insight into that, which is also another reason why it slipped through really easily. It's just, you know, he knows how we function more than probably most people.
Good. Any other comments? No? Excellent. Okay. Opportunity for consultation. So consultation on fees and charges 25-26 is on Shape Tasman. Do we as a community board want to feedback into this? Lovely. So where do we got? We got till the 28th of April to feedback. So we could decide at the end of the meeting to do a workshop / planning for the next meeting. Right, we'll set that before we go. Lovely. So special projects funding has been released, which is awesome. Thanks to Matt and Kim for preparing that report and speaking to it at council. That was awesome.
So we can move forward with the
We can absolutely. Yep, you can start
Yep.
start emailing them.
And at council at that time for that report, I didn't speak to that.
Oh, thank
I
you.
might have moved it perhaps.
I think you moved it and Celia's here.
But I also did say in my speaking there that can we just get the processes sorted out so this doesn't happen each year?
Yes, and Matt put that in his.
So it was just good to speak about that,
Thank
but
you.
bring it
Yeah.
to light a bit more.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
thank you.
And getting a reassurance that yes, we're gonna.
Yeah, we shouldn't be having to go and ask
No.
for our money. Yeah. Every email I sent you back was, I still don't understand why. You got sick of me in the end. That's okay. Update on the purple and Wachino markers. This was our item from public forum at our last meeting, and they are being dealt with. Been a few emails back and forth, but I think finally there's some action and given to understand, which is good.
Chair.
Yes.
I did go out and have a lot of contact if anyone else has seen them, and they are actually quite a long way offshore. So they're very noticeable and very common. So, well, before I had a lot.
Took a while.
So,
Probably got some.
you know, I sympathise with the residents out there who brought this, you know, to council's attention. They were very common.
Okay. Can we grant?
Just an expansion on that. So our harbour master has been back on site and did a letter drop with all of those who wanted to make sure, because this wasn't a matter of urgency, wanted to make sure everyone who knew about the markers was aware they're coming out. That was a big thing for us, just in case in the interim people had placed a degree of reliance on those markers for coming in and coming out, because there are a couple of quite lumpy features out there which are basically avoided by the presence of these markers. So we've taken the non-complying white bits out, but the substantive base is still in place, so that's another exercise to get that out. And also inviting comments back from the members there as to whether more permanent and dedicated and properly formed markers might be needed. So
just out of interest, will the charges for this be able to be put onto the people who placed the markers there?
We're not going down that.
Suck it up?
We're not going down that path, because actually assigning who actually put them in there
would be tricky.
a
I
piece
just
of
wondered,
work that may or may not conclude with an outcome, and even there might be contestable. No, we're more just understanding the situation, what might have driven those to put them in there, and wanting to see what what they might expect of us and whether or not our navigation safety aid program from the harbour master, as opposed from the RMA side, it might result in something going back in there at some point in the future.
It'd still be a resource consent
Not potentially. So the harbour master has some authority to do some of these things without going through the RMA. So the Maritime Transport Act gives some powers here, but these were put in and investigated under the RMA. But the harbour master has a role to play, and ultimately we brought those two limbs together to make sure that it's resolved in such a way that both sides and both interests are taken into account.
I assume then there is a standard marker that does mark these sort of channels, and that's what they would eventually be replaced with.
If we do
if
put
it
something
does,
in,
yeah.
yes, they would be using techniques that are similar to that, but are in place elsewhere in the district, because that technique is used, but it's not white pipe.
So potentially there will still be something there for safety.
It could be put in place, but it's another, there's a discussion going on to establish the need.
And so again, my question would be, are there other channels in Golden Bay that haven't got markers, and would that trigger sort of a whole flurry of requests?
It's an as-needed thing at the moment. You could argue right across the district there are multiple inlets that could benefit from something like this, but it's really a case of need and affordability. There's limited funds; these things cost, and there's a budget to work with, and it can only do so many things at one point in time.
So that means the investigation could be that we don't do that one, but there are more good ones.
Yep.
Good. Thank you.
Chris?
I think too that will be balanced with, some people don't want to see plastic, whatever markers in the environment and everybody in there that you go to. So there's something to weigh up there. And just to say that, I don't know whether I forwarded the emails to you or not, but one of the residents at Puponga was post the board meeting, sending emails through to the harbour master that were pressing to say, look, can we really get something going here? So it was good to hear from you, Kim, that he was being considered around, actually, we need to inform people, we can't just put them out because they're used to using them. And the letters were quite fiery, actually, and quite strong. And I just thought, with a good intent, but the response from the harbour master was very gracious, actually.
I thought it was,
I followed up too, and he got here quite quickly. But so I just think he's been really considered. We're lucky to have him. He's very good, and I think the way of working in with the community around what's needed, and it's great to see.
I would just hope that from a landscape point of view, that we have to consider that people have managed there for a long, long, long time. That's a very old harbour. And they've managed there without any sort of guidance up until now. So, and it is, it's an important landscape. So, I would hope that that is taken into consideration when the harbour master is the situation.
Well, it's important to take what both acts are trying to achieve. The Maritime Transport Act doesn't really give great weight to that, but the RMA does, and we're looking at both pieces of legislation.
Yeah,
so
that's why I'm raising it. We need to have that other balance as well.
Any other comments on the navigational aids? No? Good. All right, well, I'll move that the board reports be received. Cythia? Cythia, sorry. I think I called you Cythia before. I did before. I'm sorry, Celia. Oh,
Have you? It's great, isn't it?
Sorry, Celia. Anyway, everyone is happy. So that is good. So that brings us on to our annual plan considerations. I think Matt is joining us by Zoom. Welcome, Matt.
Kia ora. Thank you, Madam Chair. Everybody can hear me fine?
Yes.
Excellent. So what you see in front of you, and I'll take the opportunity to talk to it just because it's a little bit, well, it's a different report than you would normally see, but perhaps one that you should have been seeing in the past. So essentially, in an ideal world, we would have come and spoken to you about the annual plan council deliberations that are going on at the moment, and actually almost workshopped done a workshop on this and sort of come to an agreement about what you would like to see in this report. So we've circumvented that a little bit. So these are my thoughts, but obviously the recommendations can be changed to reflect what the board want to do in this space. Essentially, from my angle, the community board had a balance of $118,000 in their account as at 1st of July this financial year, sorry. So 1st of July 2024. To actually access those funds, you had to essentially do the paper that council just approved on Thursday and get the release of that $38,000. What I am suggesting is that you actually make a provision in the budget to release another $15,000 of that accumulated surplus and hopefully circumvent the need to go back to council with another report next year. The 15K though is just me coming up with a number and obviously needs your input. But essentially, while you spend 15K more, there's no actual rating impact because it's part of your opening surplus and essentially you've already rated for it. So that was the idea behind the 15,000. And likewise, the Remuneration Authority in New Zealand has come out with some increases to the salaries for community board members to the tune of about $11,000. And again, I was thinking you could negate the impact on that, immediately impacting rates by again using some of your existing reserve to the tune of $8,000. So that's the sum of what I'm suggesting. But those resolutions that reflect that could obviously be changed again to reflect what the community board actually wish to do it. For example, you could increase your special projects by $15,000 and not fund it from the surplus. You could fund it from rates and obviously have an increase in rates as a result of that. So happy to stop there. Kim may want to add something, but happy to ask questions. Answer.
Nothing from Kim. Any questions, Chris?
Could you remind me, Matt, I just can't quite remember what the Golden Bay Community Board rate is, target rate here for the community. What does
including GST, it's $15.63 this year.
Thank you.
So what it would actually go up to about $16.87 next year. So while I've mitigated a lot of the impact, it still does have an increase. Again, though, the community board could actually make a decision to just keep it exactly the same. And we do that by using a little bit more of the reserves that I mentioned, the $118,000.
Thank you. Grant and Celia.
Okay, so the 15,000, which is to go to our, it says special fund, but this is the special projects we're talking about.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we had originally sort of requested that we get 10K a year under that. This is a little bit of history of it. And that was what the rate was going to be, about $3 per household. So I'm not sure, we didn't actually get that this year. We didn't get that 10K, and I'm not too sure why. I haven't had that question asked. I've asked it a few times. So that's my first question anyway. I'm just wondering, what you're suggesting is that we go up to 15,000 yearly, or is this just a one-off?
So at the moment, yes, the budget is $5,000 that's rated for. So the 15 is on top of that. So you'd actually have $20,000. I think the history of the $5,000, and while it sounds like it was cut, is essentially it was done and it wasn't communicated to you guys. But again, there's often an opportunity to reinstate that for ever and a day. But certainly the 15K was just one off.
Okay.
25, 26.
Yeah, because I would like to just see it stay at 10K. Yeah, you're right. I don't know why it happened. Anyway, and that's my first question. Someone else now. I might have another question.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, but from my point of view, I think that if we can avoid, if we can do, the community board can do anything it can to actually prevent adding to rate rises,
Totally
because there will be a rate rise, a general rate rise anyway. So my what I'd like to see would be if we can mitigate that and keep it as it is, then I would support that.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Celia, far out, twice. Goodness. I'll keep doing that for the whole meeting.
I'll just change my name.
Sorry.
I'll just change my name, it's all right.
Sorry, Celia. Goodness gracious. Honestly. Any other questions, or shall we move? Oh, sorry, Henry.
Just like to second what Celia's saying. I think if we've got a surplus there, we can
Used to offset, yeah.
use to keep our rate at what it is currently. That would be a good idea.
Another quick question.
Grant.
The 8,000 going in for salaries, that's which was great, and I really agree with that. But is that only for this year? So next year, when the rates come out, it'll be they'll be higher to stay with that, because we won't have $8,000 to throw back at it.
Yeah, that's essentially right. I suppose in the report you'll note I say 4,000 the following year. So essentially, in the year after that, you would be essentially the rate would be picking up the whole lot. So it's just a way of sort of massaging it in, so it doesn't cause a spike. Admittedly, that particular rate is reasonably low, being at $15. But yeah, like Councillor said, to try to mitigate it and keep it as low as possible or zero is a good thing in the current environment.
Well, Chris.
Well, I just appreciate, Matt, that you've put this together and come up with this approach. It's helpful for me, and I think to the board. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, if no one else has got any questions, I'm certainly happy to move that we accept all those recommendations as listed by Matt.
Well,
can I just?
Yeah. Sorry, Henry.
So this using the further 8,000, it would still be a dollar something increase. I'd be supportive of increasing that amount to keep it, not increase it at all, if we've got those funds available.
And certainly to answer that through you, Madam Chair, you would. I just don't know the exact figure that would be required. So I would need the resolution to sort of give me the ability to do that, and I can just report back that it wasn't 8,000, it might be 10,200 or whatever it might be. But I'd have to come back to you to quantify.
I'm supportive of that, actually.
So we need to change the
So we would need to change the resolution, wouldn't we? Which to 3, for the change from group to 3, wouldn't it? Approves the use of a further 8,000. Would need to be
further funds.
Further, whatever.
Sufficient funds. Sufficient funds to ensure the per household rate does not increase.
Remains, yeah.
Yep, spot on. Thank you.
Well, I'm happy to move that.
just need to get it up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Citation.
Oh. Need my keyboard, sorry.
Just while that's being typed up through you again, Madam Chair, the hope is this year, or the intention rather than the hope, is that we'll come back to you when the actual annual plan process starts, which is most likely September, October of this year, and get the community board's thoughts. So you'll have time to consider it. Ultimately, we don't go to, this is part of what the council approves at the end of June. So there's no specific report that we need to take back to council as such about what you're doing today. It just gets approved with the rest of the annual plan in late June. Thank you.
So then just put from, take those words out. Well,
This one?
yeah.
You just choose straight through the code. It won't come up on the screen.
Okay.
Um,
And take it off.
Right, is everybody happy with that? If I move it?
Yep.
Great, I'm happy to move it. Can I have a seconder?
Yeah.
Henry, all those in favour?
Aye.
Great, carried. Thank you, Matt.
Just getting back to grant then. So what you've got out of that is you've got to maintain your $5 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah, 15, so next year you get 20.
Yeah.
But your base is still 5. So for the future, to get it up to 10, it's a future discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great.
That's what confused me so much.
Now, Matt, you're also going to talk to us about our financial summary. Do we want to do that now? Because there's no discretionary reports, but we can come back to the, we can skip back to that if you want to do the financial summary now.
Yeah, no, happy to.
Yep.
Look, I'll just take it a thread. Sorry, I got slightly blindsided by this. I'm not quite sure of the process. So my colleagues in finance did it, and I haven't actually seen it until just now. But look, happy to take any questions about the report and just take it as read.
Yeah, and we've been really updated. I'm not sure if you were here, and I said thank you for the work that you and Kim and Chris and Celia did at the meeting for that reporting for our special project. So thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Matt while we're here about the finances? No, I think you might be safe, Matt.
Very good.
I think that's good. So we'll just receive the financial report. Would anyone like to? Grant, seconder. I will second that. All those happy? Lovely. Great. Oh, thank you, Matt. Really appreciate your time and the response for the emails. Sorry we couldn't connect via phone, but emails seem to work well. But
That's it. No, thank you very much. Enjoy your afternoon. Cheers.
you too.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, so that takes us back to the discretionary fund. There are no requests this time round. There is an accountability form from Golden Bay Photo Club, and just an update. I know, Grant, you were asking about seeing the accountabilities. We seem to not be seeing very many, so we are putting together a list, and then we'll check them off. Mine's one of those for the Boys and Girls Show, so I will get onto that before I get a
How long do we
email from.
How long do we give them?
They get, is it a year or 9 months? Maybe 6 months. Oh dear, I better pull my finger out. Was it 6? It'll be in here because the policy's in here. Hang on. 6 months I was receiving funding. Oh, my bad. 6 months. Pull my finger out. The Boys and Girls Show, but yeah. So we're just getting a list.
It's just transparency stuff. That's what I'm after.
Yeah, absolutely. 5.4.
Oh, that's more to one. Well, you're different than more. That's
Yes,
right. That's
yeah.
right.
Are we
You're
different?
You're 6 and I'm 12. Yeah.
Oh, is that where I got 12 from?
Yeah.
Why are we different? There we go there.
Go back a couple of years to figure that out.
I've just got a question. Could we just go over how we are actually advertising to the community about the discretionary fund? I know we've had it in the Golden Bay Weekly, but it's not something that the community's kind of used to. So
I know I mentioned it to lots of groups, but whether or not we put it something in Newsline again, maybe we make that the topic of our board meeting. But we could do a funding thing that can then go on the website as well and on Facebook.
yes,
So we can make that the topic for our next board matters.
yeah, sure.
I've written some lovely ones this year. That's actually really good because sometimes I struggle for ideas, so that's great.
We just need to keep it up.
Board matters, funding options. Lovely. Okay, well, that's us.
So you've got the time for your
Yes.
consultation.
Should we close and then decide on the workshop, or we could do it in the meeting?
Did we have a presentation about the
No, they haven't responded. I don't think.
Yes, they have.
Oh,
They've
they have?
just responded
Oh,
to me now.
sorry.
So that comes out of a previous chair's report.
Yeah.
So that could be a matters arising from the chair's report.
Cool.
That's right. Yeah.
User action sheet.
Because
It's here, isn't it? At the bottom.
No.
No.
So how do we deal with this one, Ron? This is a matter that's come through the board report, and it's a follow-up item. Can we dial back to the chair's report, the board report?
we need to be following up on
We could put
Yeah.
it into the next one.
Community
Will they change
presentations.
the colour?
Oh, yes, they are.
Oh,
I've
great.
I've just got the confirmation from Ned that he's coming to
Oh,
the
well,
next
let's
one.
put it for the next one and talk
Yeah.
about it then, and then we won't need to.
That was a
go back
case
and
of
forth.
showing the sort of the board, the sort of material, wasn't it?
That's right,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah,
this
So we
is,
could just have it, yeah.
so this has been
Great.
brought in today by Ewan, who
Yeah.
actually collected it, and this is, like 2 days worth. But, I do need to give it back to you. So, but
Good
we could
visual.
have it again for the next meeting.
Yeah,
But there was discussion about the drift over the bay just before the meeting started, and that is something that we need to consider, because this is actually all being picked up on the eastern side of the bay, but apparently mussel buoys end up on the eastern part of the bay, even if they're from Pickwall. So there is a drift across. So
So it was,
the issue is that this could be from anywhere in the bay, probably, but I don't know about the drift.
Yeah.
The currents.
well, it's more surface driven, I think, surface driven wind. that would take
Wind.
it.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
So can I just talk to
Yeah.
what's proposed? So
That would be great.
this community board is able to receive presentations from external parties. So whereas the council can't, apart from the public forum. So what Ned has asked for is an ability to actually have a full presentation to you during the
Right.
agenda. I said, look, the board likes to see that material in advance, not just presented on the day. So he's okay with that. But you'd cover a sort of an agenda item inside the agenda. If that works for you, then he's happy with that.
Yeah,
It'd be
amazing.
for your next board meeting.
That would be great, because I was thinking the hand at the bottom because we didn't get back from Siren
No.
Gold.
Yeah, no, he couldn't. He got hold of me to say he couldn't make today, but we've been talking about when he could make it. Yeah,
Fantastic.
so
Oh,
he's-
that's great.
He's agreed to that. So,
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
and also on the board report, which we're going to go into talking about your consultations. Just John's reminded me that Plan Change 81 is out for consultation.
Oh,
so
okay,
that's
cool.
the intensification and stuff.
Yeah.
16th of April is when it closes. So there's nothing in Golden. It doesn't. Oh, okay. I'm just thinking, but does the plan change apply to any of, does it apply in Golden Bay? Oh, it does. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a public consultation coming up.
Cool. Right.
So, changing the subject, we didn't have a action sheets in this time, and I just looking at last agenda, we had one about the toilet at Waitapu, and it was going to be cleaned until April. So it was on there. I don't think it would have come off, and I'm just wondering what's going to happen now about the toilet at Waitapu.
Hopefully not much use from now through the next part.
Does it get taken out though? Because I heard that it was going to be removed. But I
Heard that from,
I forgot his name. That's all right.
a staff member.
Mhm.
Well,
So-
I hope that if it was going to be removed, that we'd hear about it here.
Yeah. Can we follow that up, please?
Thank you. Action sheet. I'll follow up on that for the next time as well. All right.
I've just got one question, and
Yep.
it's in relation to the day at the rec centre, and I did actually bring up with Natural Hazards leader Alistair and ask him whether or not there was going to be the flood modelling information there, because I actually think that it made me an assumption that the Golden Bay community will be as much interested in the natural hazards and the flood modelling as they will be in Plan Change 81. So it appears that the flood modelling is not going to be specifically presented, but there will be the opportunity for people to look online on the day, as far as I'm aware,
With staff.
with staff guidance, so that they'll be able to look on the the website's on. That's my understanding, but I do feel that you know, the natural hazards and floods, I don't know what other members think, would be as much a concern as Plan Change 81, which is about our new zones.
Is it on the calendar?
The public consultation one.
Yeah.
I don't know if it should be
It's
in
on
there,
shape
but
test
I'll be on
already.
if you sign up
It's
to
on there already.
16th of April.
16th of
5:30 makes sense.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, shoot. Not on mine, but
When
mine's-
are
Well,
submissions actually due though?
2 to 5, 2 p.m. to 5:30 p.m.
Okay. Well, shall we officially close and then we
I
can
was gonna say, when are they due?
then sort all this out and arrange to meet. So I thank you everybody, and I'll just pass quickly to Kim for closing character.
Kia whakairia te tapu, kia wātea ai te ara, kia turuku whakataha ai, mumi ai, hui ai,
Ai.
taiki ai.
Thank you everybody. So if we just set a time to meet and do the consultation